What's going on, everybody? What's going on? Just checking in with you today. Just another thought I was having. Just continuing to be vulnerable and just continuing to be obedient to God. Just wanted to share something real quick. You know, um, a lot of times we preach messages of things that I know for me, I preach things that a lot of times that I'm going through or I've been through. A lot of times I'm going through it and I'm still going through it even after I have to walk it out. And it's funny because I'm hearing this message that was given last week, and one of the bullet points was, if we listen to the whispers, of the enemy, which was confirmed because Bobby Barrera had put a post similar to what I had said, just confirmation that God's speaking. But if we listen to the whispers, and what whispers are we listening to? Are we listening to the whispers of the enemy? And if we listen to the whispers, then we'll be bound by the screams, and feared and chained by the screams. And I've had to walk that out a lot of times in my life. And lately I've had to walk that out. And as I'm sitting here even tonight, I'm going over some things and continuing to go over some things, and I'll be honest with you, you get so many things happening all at once. The enemy doesn't come just at one moment. He comes with a rushing wind of darts, with a rushing wind of darts. And so, I've just been seeing it continuing to happen in the floodgates. And I know that there's spiritual warfare. And, when we're doing good things, man, there's spiritual warfare. And for someone like me, it's constant spiritual warfare. Can't even make a lot of this stuff up, But anyways, I don't want to get off topic. I want to share exactly what I'm trying to say here. That, I was, the whispers, and there was one time I went into a church. We were doing church in our house, and we went to this big church we were visiting. And, man, I was looking around, and I was like, man, wow. Man, these people are so blessed. Me and my wife were looking at them like, man, this is powerful and this and that. And, almost started, the enemy started to whisper and started to get us to try to measure up and try to see where we're wrong and try to almost start bringing condemnation. And that's not how God is. That's not what God does. That's not God, right? We happy for those that are moving, and we don't condemnation and point fingers. Oh, they must be compromising. But the enemy always tries to bring division any way he can, judging, gossip, anything. And so I remember going home and just allowing God to whisper to us and say, man, look at all the great things that the Lord is doing and using us, and miracles we're seeing in such even a small church that doesn't even need all these fancy things. And not that, hey, that's what they need, that's what they want, that's what they're using. Hey, God bless them. But but just to see what God's doing with us and how he's using us, and just to see the things that we see and just being grateful. And, it's funny because over the years, the enemy tries to use the same tactics in different ways. When you see people, man, you see people getting blessed, and you see people being blessed, and you see people just elevated and getting out in different areas. Let's say money, let's say businesses, let's say all that, and you start to go, man, how are they so blessed? And then you start to go, well, what am I doing wrong, or how are they compromising, or they just don't, and it's just like all this stuff, instead of, just being grateful for the people, praying for them, and celebrating with them. The enemy always wants to try to divide and ultimately wants to knock you down, right? Wants to knock us down, wants to knock the people down. That's why I think Facebook can be dangerous, because you see everybody, they post the good times, they don't post the bad, right? Everybody wants to share their mountaintops, but they don't. They really just isolate in their valleys, right? And so the thing is you see all this stuff happening, and sometimes you get caught up in it. Sometimes you can get caught up in it. And it's just so good that, at the same time the enemy starts to whisper, the same time you start to just go, you start to wonder, and you start to listen to, maybe you're starting to listen to the whispers, or you're starting to hear them a little bit. But then all of a sudden, out of the goodness of God, man, powerful. here comes a text in my text box. And it was just a confirmation. See, when the enemy whispers, God's whispering too. It's just which one are we gonna lean into? I can hear the whispers of the enemy, but all I gotta do is say thanks for sharing. But that trick's no good. And then you move forward. Oh, I hear you. Oh, I can hear it. Oh, I heard what you just said. I don't receive it. See, it's like my mentor always says, it's not what they call you, it's what you respond to. And today I don't respond to that enemy, because the beautiful thing is I got to remember, and I'm here to preach to you and to tell you just as I'm telling to myself, because right now I'm preaching to myself right now. I heard the enemy. I've been hearing him, and I actually been kind of like just listening a little bit, because it says that it's self-delusion. He's an illusionist. He can whisper, and then he can make it appear real. He's an illusion. It's all illusion, though. It's not real. And all of his stuff is fake. It's all fake. And it's all just for such a time, but not for the eternity. It's just for a short period. And so at the same time that the enemy would be whispering, God is whispering too. And God was whispering to me today. He used a brother to text me and say something to me. And basically out of the text, what I got out of it and what I heard God say was this. You know, people are blessed in many ways. Some people are blessed in many ways. Some people get blessings in material ways. Some people get elevated in certain ways because that's what God's doing. Sometimes it ain't God. Sometimes it's a distraction. Sometimes it looks good and it's great, but it will ultimately pull them away from their real purpose. But what I heard God say to me just now in this whole thing, as I heard this text, it said that spiritual blessings can't be bought. We know that because we know that Simon the sorcerer had money, and he wanted to buy what those disciples had. It wasn't for sale. And basically out of that text, what that person told me, the discernment that I have and the way that God is using me to speak into people's lives and into his life, that's something that no man can buy. No man can purchase. No man can work for that. That's something that God gives you, and that's precious. Because see, I can make money, I can buy things, and I can accumulate things. But one thing we ain't going to be able to buy is those gifts that he wants to give us. Them gifts that people that with money desire to have. And no matter what they do, they will never acquire them. God gives those to people that he entrusts with. And I would say, well, why would you entrust me with that, God? I know I'm not the best at all that. He says it's your obedience, son. It's your love and your passion and your obedience. Just like somebody works really hard and they get a paycheck, you obey really well. And it's those gifts that I lavish on you. You know, the gifts that we should require more than anything is not gifts of tongues, but gifts of discernment and prophecy. Prophecy of discerning things to come and speaking prophetic words into people's lives. But never asking for the title or even waving the title in anybody's hand. I would never call myself a prophet or any of that. What I call myself is a servant that is obedient to the Lord. So what are you saying with all this, Tony? I'm saying this. Be encouraged. Stay in your word. Be obedient to it. And allow God to lavish the gifts that he has for you onto you. God wants to give you something today. But he doesn't gonna give you something something that would ruin you. He doesn't want to give you something before it's time to. He wants to see you seek him, surrender to him, so that he can give you the things that he wants to give you. But he wants to make sure that when he gives them to you, that it's not going to ruin you. He doesn't want these things to ruin you. And sometimes, if we get these things too quickly, they will